Hello, I'm Gaston Gosselin, Collage New Music Fellow for this current season, and today I'm joined by Christopher Trapani, who will be having his piece Waterlines performed at our upcoming concert on April 26th at 3 p.m. at the Longy School of Music. Chris, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Gaston.
So, Chris, your piece Waterlines, what can you tell us about it and how it relates to this theme of this concert that we have, which is this broad sense of home that we establish in many different areas of the United States currently?
Waterlines is a piece about my home, which is New Orleans, where I currently live, uh, where I'm coming to you from now. And Waterlines is a piece that deals with two separate events. One is Hurricane Katrina, which hit New Orleans in 2005, and the other is the 1927 flood of the Mississippi River that affected the entire Delta region all the way down into Louisiana. And what I wanted to do was create a kind of parallel between these two events by using text and a lot of sonic references to the vintage sounds of old 78 RPM. We fortuitously have a lot of recordings from this era because it was the heyday of electrical recording before the Great Depression. So we happen to have a lot of songs about the 1927 flood. And that's how the piece started, by just collecting texts that have something to do with floods, storms, natural disasters, and taking those from old country, old time, and blues records.
Very cool. Yeah, and a thing that I've noticed from a couple of your pieces now is this idea of joining together these different musical genres into one seamless format. Um, and additionally, from reading into you a little bit more as well, I noticed that you studied microtonal and just intonation systems in France and Turkey. And I'm wondering how you incorporated these elements into your piece, and as well as just this kind of idea that you established of also seeing these crossovers with blues and country styles at the same time. And I'm just wondering what that journey was like for discovering these crossovers and how you made them a very big reality for this piece.
Well, I should say that the first movement of the piece was composed in 2005, right in the immediate aftermath of Katrina. And I didn't finish the cycle then, but I kind of planned it out. So I knew what I was going to do. I had the text chosen. I had the rough form of the piece already picked out. For a number of reasons, it would take me 5 or 6 years to actually finish the piece. But when I was living in Paris, I was thinking a lot about spectral music that I was hearing at that time, and the performance of Gérard Griset's Les Espaces Acoustiques when I was 23, which really sort of profoundly changed me. And I started to think about, you said that the theme of the concert is home. And in tonal music, we have a tonic, which is the home. In modal music, we have a focal pitch, which functions as a home. But in spectral music, the there's this idea that we can have a continuum between a pure spectrum or tone and a complex, noisy spectrum. And so the home becomes that that pure consonance. And I thought a lot about that. And consonance, of course, has certain microtonal resonances embedded into it. So, how could I take those microtones and put them in the piece, but at the same time, always confronting it with a modal language? And the modal language comes from the Appalachian dulcimer, which has a fixed mode, a Mixolydian mode that never changes. That's a constant element throughout the piece. And that dialogue between constancy and rupture is another element of spectral music that I'm exploring throughout the piece.
Well, cool. And so you mentioned that were writing this piece over the course of 5 years. That's correct, right?
It would be more correct to say that I wrote the first movement, put it in a drawer. 5 years later, took it out and finished it.
Yeah, and we as people change quite a bit over the course of 5 years. And I'm wondering what it was like going back and revisiting a work after that amount of time has passed, and I guess what insights that you had that were different at that point.
I'm sure I wrote it somewhat differently than I would have at age 25, but I did respect the research that I had done in collecting the texts and in formulating a structure that was going to dictate sort of five emotional states. That's how the five songs work in the cycle.
Cool. And since this concert is themed around this idea of home, uh, I was, this idea is very distinctive to each of us, and it can be kind of the most broad scope things and the most kind of minutely, almost monotonous things. For some people, it could be just like the bed you sleep in is, you're right, is the thing that you think is quintessentially home. It could be a person, a loved one, or it could even be that interesting pastry at that for some reason only that one coffee shop down the street from your office seems to get right. And I'm wondering for you, what is something that is so distinctly home for you? As you mentioned, being in New Orleans, and growing up there, what is something so distinctly home for you about that?
I've been fortunate enough to travel many places, many alluring places like Varanasi, Istanbul, Naples. And New Orleans for me has the same kind of attraction to it. It's a dense, culturally diverse place with layers and layers of things to discover. So the music, the food, the ambiance, the culture, all of these unique aspects of New Orleans. I grew up here. I'm back living here for 3 years now, and I feel like I continue to uncover new things, and that's the kind of rich environment that I value, and it's also the kind of uh, synthesis that I try to embed in my music, drawing on multiple sources and traditions and make something new and unique out of them.
Very cool. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining me here today. And to everyone else, I hope you can join us at our upcoming concert again on April 26th at 3 p.m. at the Longy School of Music. Chris, thank you again.
Thank you, Gaston.